Just a few folks.
Who?
It's just Freedom Builders folks.
Maybe 10,000 people.
No, maybe 10. We'll be lucky if there's 10.
Yeah, we'll put some advertising to it and get it like right on Facebook. Get a couple 100,000 people watch.
Try to stress her out.
Oh, shit.
No liability here.
No liability.
Are you wanted? Are you crazy?
Exactly,
No.
exactly.
Oh, I have a question.
Do we wait right till 11 o'clock?
Yeah.
What time is it? 10. Will you let me know? Is this your role here?
Yeah, I'm just making sure you guys, I'm just gonna hang out with you, that's all.
Come on.
I'm just running this.
Keith Bonham. Yeah, nice to meet you. I'm doing the education director for the school.
Yeah, he's going
Yeah, I'm taking over all the scheduling, all the lunch sponsors and stuff. So every now and then we'll have you come back. Yeah.
Are you sure?
We'll see. It's
I'm sorry,
we'll
I'm sorry.
we'll see. Yeah, 12 o'clock.
Lippard, just want to make sure when I introduce y'all was.
Oh, do I need to move?
No. Well, no. It's all informal. I'm more trying to get myself exposed and introduce people because a lot of people are.
What did you do before?
I was in the hospitality and restaurant industry for many years, but I'm also from this area. So I was born and raised in Raleigh, went to Garner High School, went to NC State. Worked in a lot of restaurants in the area. I live right down in Willow Spring. I have a sister who's in the area, Carrie Bond.
Y'all know the whole time?
Who'd you work for?
I worked at Jack Astor's in Cary. JD's Apex. Before that, a couple places in Florida.
You're not wanted, are you?
No.
I do watch crime shows.
No, not that I know of. Not that I know. I mean, I have been in residential for 7 years, so you may have seen my name. Yeah, you may have seen my name in passing.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I just said that was a popular question today.
Absolutely. That's
I like
right.
it.
That's right. Are you one?
I'm gonna start using that one. That's such a good little, well, I'm embarrassing myself right now because I think I know you, but I don't. Are you wanted?
Right. That's kind of like my husband and I, when we meet somebody.
Yeah.
Like, I can't remember their name, you know, I know who they are, but I can't remember their name. I'll reach out and say, good to see you, and my husband will reach out and say, I'm gay. He never introduces me.
Yeah.
And that makes sense.
Oh, I do the same thing. I always just, well, see, I'll just push my wife right into it. I'll be like, oh, good to see you. This is my wife, Angela. And then she'll say, oh, yeah, and then they'll say the name. And I'm like, yes. Because, yeah, I'm the same way. I'm good with faces, not with
I know.
names.
Yeah.
At all. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Hey, no,
I can't.
hey, look, I'm surprised anybody showed up. I don't know why anybody would be
So they're doing a good
Because
job.
everyone.
Promoting. We're doing a good job promoting.
We're all here just to see you, Jacqueline.
It's getting deep. Thank you, sweetie. So what time is it?
How was Wilmington?
It was good. It's 11 o'clock. We can start whenever you guys are ready.
I'm ready.
But I think we're gonna let our guest that brought
Yeah.
breakfast speak first.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Who's that?
Big Ed. You ready for us? Yeah. All right.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yes. He watches crime shows too, Jacqueline. He watches crime shows too, yeah. All right, everybody, we're gonna go ahead and get started. For those who do not know me, I joined EXP beginning of July. I'm also on as the new education coordinator for the real school for April. So I'm putting together the trainings, the lunch sponsorships. I'm gonna do a post on the real estate advisors page of anything that you all would like to see as a training. So if you have any ideas or things that you think would be valuable to other agents, when I pose that question, if you don't mind responding and saying, hey, I'd like to learn about this. Today we've got Brian Stevens and Jacqueline Lippard both commercial real estate agents are going to give us a little information on the commercial side of real estate. But first, our lunch sponsor today is Big Ed from Under Pressure Power Washing. If you haven't gotten any Bojangles, I'm sorry, you guys on the computer, there is Bojangles here you're missing out on. I may make him the permanent lunch sponsor if he promises to bring Bojangles every week. But he has been, well, I'll let him tell you. Big Ed with Under Pressure Power Washing.
Thank you, Chief. Hello, everybody. I won't bore you too long. I'm Big Ed with Under Pressure Power Washing, where we clean it like we own it. We love working with realtors. We do all kinds of power washing. We do from the roof all the way down, concrete, sidewalks, driveways, curving. We do decks. We've done tree houses. We do just about anything, commercial, residential. But the residential is where we try to help you all out to move your homes faster. So what we do is any realtor that starts using us for their power washing, we give your customers 10% off anything. All they do is they call, they set up a power washing, we come out and wash it. And they said, hey, so-and-so, this Keith sent me out here. Okay, let me take 10% off your bill. You know, that way they know they're actually getting the discount, because I don't know that they get the discount until after the job's done. So that's one of the things we've always done to try to be different. The other thing we do to be very different is when we wash your house, we wash the outside of your house, which includes the outside of your gutters, your house, your foundation, your front porch, your front steps, your front handrails. We also include the outside of your trash cans, any outdoor furniture. You got an LP tank on the side of your house, we wash that. You got a birdhouse on a painted pole, we wash that painted pole. We wash your mailbox. We try to make everything look good. The only thing we charge extras for, of course, are decks, sheds, detached garages, like I say, tree houses, fences, you know, anything that's not actually part of the house. And like I say, I've been doing this 22 years, been doing it a long time in this area. I don't know how many of you know anything about B&I, but if you're a realtor, will find out about B&I before too long, I imagine. And I've been in that 21 years. And that in itself is quite a statement in this area. I think I'm one of the few people that's been in B&I that long. But basically, that's about it. If you got any questions or anything you'd like to ask me, I'll be glad to field any questions for you.
What areas do you service?
Johnston, Wake, parts of Durham and Harnett counties.
Okay.
So we do a pretty good footprint. And if it's commercial, we do stuff in Virginia, we do stuff in Charlotte, just depends on how big the job is. Well, right now we're running 3 rigs, so I can usually get you in within 7 to 10 days. We usually stay right around that 7 to 10 day mark. Just depends on what all's going on, but like I said, we do a lot of commercial stuff too. We do a lot of Bojangles. We do 4 different neighborhoods for MI homes. We do quite a bit of power washing, probably about $200,000 worth of power washing a year. So we do a whole lot of stuff. We can clean just about anything. And like I say, you know, we're not perfect just like anybody else, but if you have a problem, you call us up, we come out, we make it right. Even if it's something we didn't do, if we can help you make it right so the house can sell, we'll do whatever we can. That's about all I got.
There's information in the chat box.
Thank you.
All righty. Well, y'all have a good day. Please get you some food. Enjoy the food.
Thank you.
Am I good right here?
No, you gotta stand in it. These people want to see you. Look, there's only a couple of people in here.
I'm not worried about that. Like I said, holding me accountable for what I say later. Okay. Hey, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Brian Stevens. Jacqueline.
Jacqueline Lippard. Today we're talking about commercial, and quite honestly, I had no clue what everybody wanted to go over. So there's more on these sheets than we'll ever be able to cover. Okay. However, I figured we'd kind of start out with just talking a little bit about leases and investments, because those are the two things that we seem to get the most questions on. Leases are, of course, bread and butter for a lot of commercial realtors. They don't do anything but leasing. Some don't do anything but sales. Commercial is kind of different in the big boys, and when I say the big boys, I'm talking about the CBREs, the NAI. See, I can't see, like I said, hold me accountable. NAI, Carolina, some of those bigger brokerages will focus on industrial. There are some people out there that just focus on multifamily. So there's a lot of real specialized brokers within commercial real estate. Brian and I are more generalist, where we do leases, we do land sales. We're working on some industrial land sales right now, some multifamily land sales, and some commercial land sales. So that we do a lot of different things, but we're more generalist. Being a generalist, you have to have a whole lot of people that support you, because you don't know everything. You can't know everything. So you have really good people in your team, attorneys, bankers, appraisers. Same thing with you guys, but we go a little deeper. Well, not necessarily, y'all do that too. We have construction people that we can call, electric people, because some commercial needs phase 3 power, and phase 3 power is a much larger voltage or wattage. Okay, bigger power to handle bigger equipment. So we're going to talk a little bit first about the different, we've kind of covered a little bit on types of commercial real estate. Now, types of commercial: land, office. Land has a bunch of different categories as well. And then you have office, which has a bunch of different categories as well. Then you have industrial, which has different types of categories. Retail. So there's a lot of things, and everybody hears the word all the time: mixed use. Mixed use can be office and retail. It can be office, retail and residential. Retail and residential is over in, not Archer's Lodge, over, what's that place called? Riverwood, where it's got retail on the bottom and residential on the top. So that's a mixed use there. But tell me, out of commercial types, does anybody have questions? Do you know this stuff?
Pretend we know nothing.
Pretend you know nothing?
Yes, teach us like we're kindergartners. We know
Yay!
nothing about commercial real estate.
All right, woo. That's gonna go a whole lot deeper than I thought we were gonna do. We're just gonna touch the bases though.
I feel like the big things is like when we have somebody that comes to us and is like, I want commercial real estate, who do we call?
Oh,
How do we do a referral? Where do we even start? Well, I mean, obviously we call you, but
how would you?
like, how would you write that up? How
Okay.
do you prefer referrals?
Okay, well, if we're just talking about referrals, yes,
Or
sir.
I was gonna say, what questions would you like us to already have answered for y'all when they say, hey, I want to do commercial? What should we ask them
That-
before contacting you, or is it just pass it off? And
That is such a great question, and I'll tell you why. Let's go down to why everybody's in this room today. What reason is that?
Because you're here.
Nope.
We want to learn.
What reason?
Make money.
Make money. Who's here? Who's here just because they want to be, just to have fun?
Put your hand.
Put your hand down, put your hand down. Everybody, yeah, there's gonna be a test at the end, by the way, young lady.
I taught him everything he knows. I'm just kidding. Oh, this is fun. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Let's make this a 2-hour
Wait.
class.
Yeah, this might have to be a 2-hour class. So that's a great, the reason I say that's such a great question is because pay, everything comes down to pay. Well, in residential real estate, y'all trade back with a lot of times y'all trade back and forth with referrals and stuff like that. And y'all kind of, everybody will go, hey, I'll give you this referral at 25%. I want a 25% referral. Well, I'll be honest with you guys, we don't do that. We can't do that. We have a property right now that we've been working on for a little over a year. It won't close until November, okay? Commercial is a long game. Even if it's a quick lease, it can still take 3 months. How long did it take with Smiles? 6 months?
About 3 months.
About 3 months.
That was really quick.
And that's a quick one. We had a 1031 last year that took about 7 months, and they're normally quicker than that too. So it's such a long game that if you call us and you say to us, hey, I've got Mr. Smith, he's interested in leasing something. Okay, so that means we qualify, we find out the areas, we do all that work before we even get started. And it's going to take us several months to do this. We don't offer 25% referral. And I don't mean that to be ugly. I'm just being straightforward. We can't afford to do that because on a lease, you guys make more on your typical home sale than we do on a lease.
Leases don't pay.
No, leases don't pay much. Yes, ma'am.
But can you also talk about, like, it's not where we as residential, like, oh, you're looking for this, this, and this, let me just jump in the MLS and find you all your options. You don't have one place, so you literally have to dig for every deal.
That
That's
is
gonna be my
exactly
question,
right.
is how do we find these opportunities online?
I was talking, we were with some friends for dinner one night and we were talking about being on the phone. And I said, yeah, I'm probably on the phone 6 to 8 hours a day. And my girlfriend's husband said, no, you're not. And my husband said, she's probably underestimating because I'm on the phone, you know, all the time. I mean, that is,
There's two things we use. We use CoStar and Crexie and other agents.
and phone. Mhm.
Phone with other agents.
Now, here's,
I got this client.
that's right. Or I've got this coming up. Here's the other thing. We don't, the platforms that we use aren't regulated like MLS. And it's so frustrating. And I can't say that we don't use it to our advantage because everybody else does too. That doesn't make it right. However, CoStar and Crexie, because they're not regulated. April, you put a house under contract today. What's your next step with MLS?
To change it to contingent.
You change it to contingent.
We might change it 2 months later.
We don't have to.
Maybe.
We are regulated in that. So anything you find in CoStar and Crexie has to be a phone call. Y'all,
Or
that's a
email,
lot of,
for sure.
or emails, and sometimes they won't email you back, say, or both. So it's a ton of legwork, so to speak, even just to find what's available. You may call and they've got an LOI on it and we
Letter of
searched,
intent.
letter of
Letter of
intent.
intent.
We searched for one particular client for almost a year and didn't find them one thing. Now, the market was extremely hot during that time, but everything, they needed a 1031 exchange and everything they were looking for was already under contract, but they still had it listed. Why do they still have it listed on CoStar and Crexie? To make us call them, and we do. Right?
Speaking on that for a second, I'm gonna squirrel you in two different directions. One, tell them real quick what a 1031 exchange is, and also just so you know, we have an entire class voted to 1031s that we're gonna do, so in a couple months. So, but if you will, because I had this question from one of my agents this week, we've got a seller getting a lot of equity, what is their best option? And at least give them an overview of what a 1031 exchange means, what they need and why they need it, just give it away.
Okay. All right. A 1031 exchange is actually a tax deferred exchange. It cannot be used for residential property. It can be used for a beach house if the beach house is actually going to be leased out part of the time. But 1031 means like kind, and it is not tax free. It is not tax free. Everybody says, let's do a tax-free 1031. And no, it is not tax-free. It is tax deferred. That deferral runs with that property. When you sell that property and you go to the next one, if you don't 1031 and keep that ball rolling, at some point, the IRS gets their pound of flesh. Okay, so don't think it's tax-free. Now, a 1031 is a like-kind exchange one for another. You have to have what's called a QI, or a qualified intermediary. And a qualified intermediary is the person that walks this entire thing through. They normally work with a title company, Investors Title, y'all know who they are. And the QI is qualified to do all this. If you have a 1031 exchange, your seller cannot accept any money. We almost got in trouble with that because we were in a hurry. Your seller cannot accept any money. What do y'all get these days? Due diligence fees, right? What happens to them? Who are they written to? Directly to the seller. Don't do that. You can screw up the whole 1031. Don't do that.
All this to say, so when that question comes up on your listing agreement, and you're writing a contract, I had the same thing happen to me. I wrote a contract on a piece of land. After everything was said, done, and negotiated, checks were delivered. Seller goes, actually, I really don't want this check. I'm doing a 1031 exchange. I'm like,
Yeah.
so now we have it sitting in an attorney's office. We
And
have to
you can
negotiate
do-
all of that. So
Yes.
it's not in his hands, but the
Right.
attorney's gonna do the closing, so he's gonna credit it back once we move forward. So that's why if you're asking somebody and you're like, what is a 1031? And it, you know, a lot of times they say, well, if you don't know that you're not doing one, doesn't mean you're not gonna figure it out and try to do one 8
That's
months from now.
That's
So
right.
if this is something you're considering, let's know that up front so that we don't get checks crossed.
Yeah, and take a class. Take
And
a
this is
class, no
just-
matter what.
I'm sorry, this is just on commercial that they can use the 1031, or is this like the?
Investment property.
It's right.
Any investment property?
Right. Investment property, and it's real property. It is not businesses. 1031s are tied to real property, and they are tax deferred exchanges of like-kind properties. Now, what you need to remember, the two big things you need to remember about 1031s and why you need to get some education on them. One is the DD money, if you're going to accept that, or how that's handled. And two is the timing. When you do a 1031 exchange, you have 180 days to close on that next property. And that sounds like a lot of time, but it may not be. We ran out of time and couldn't find anything. So that 180 days is very important, but the first piece is 45 days. Within 45 days, you have to identify property that is going to be exchanged into. As soon as you close, you've got 45 days to identify. But that 180 days includes that 45 days. So that 180 days gets shrunk a little bit by the identification period. You always have to have a QI, and you need a good attorney that's done them before. Is that good enough?
Talking
You
about
want-
identifying different properties, multiple properties.
Okay, you can identify up to 3 properties. You just can't go over, well, they're not gonna get that deep in it. You just can't go over 200% value. So if you get that deep into a 1031, you need somebody to help you. The main thing you need to realize is you need to tell your people if they're going to do a 1031 exchange, and I'd ask them up front, especially with so many people that have got so much equity in their homes these days. I'd say, do you plan on doing a 1031 exchange? And if they say yes, you know, they can actually exchange that. I know the interest rates have changed a little bit now, but you know, I read a story, read a little thing about somebody in Texas that took their money from the sale of their home, bought a vacation home with it that they did Airbnb or something with, and then turned around and got another loan and bought another house. Well, you know what? That was really smart. So, you know, there's a possibility that you could have someone that's got enough equity that they do something with that money. So just ask them up front. If they're going to do a 1031 and you know that, the next question or the next thing you need to be aware of is the DD and how that's handled. And the third thing is getting them involved with somebody that can handle it, getting them a QI and watching the time if you're going to help them on the next stage. But if you get to that point, you'll already have talked to somebody, I'm pretty sure.
I'm gonna circle back to Keith's question and just use a specific example. For instance, Lauren on our team called yesterday, has a commercial lead. When he's asking what information do you need? So this is a commercial building that is income producing because of the type of business that they run, but they're not necessarily looking to sell the business. So explain the conversation difference of, okay, so this particular one, I feel like what it is probably its highest and best use. So when you guys go to sell it to somebody, you might be selling it to a similar owner. So if they're calling you with somebody who's already got a business in there, you're just kind of like if somebody calls us and they have rental property, what's your rent rolls? We need to know what is the property.
Yeah, because like when I started asking her about rent rolls, if you explain how your business in there works, she goes, why? I'm just selling the building. And I explained to her, I said, just in case you know when we get in the process of it is listed, if that is the best use of it, people might be curious of all those questions. But I had no idea when they called me. I was like, hey, April, what do you want me to say?
Pardon?
We're going to meet with him tonight. It's
Okay,
in Irwin. Sorry.
okay, that's fine.
So just talk about like the different properties. So if I were to call you on this building and say, hey guys, I'm thinking of selling this building versus the one next door, which you guys know about, talk about the differences and the questions that you would need them to know before they call you, or at least know to ask.
Okay. That's pretty broad, okay? But if somebody calls you and says, hey, she hit on so many things that my mind's going, woo! Because one, if there is a business in that building, that's totally separate than if they're selling a building, okay? Are they selling the business?
No.
Are
They're
they?
looking to close down the business and just sell it.
All right, so that's not even a lease back. There's something called a sell lease back. That means that the current owner of the building is occupying the building, they own the building, and their business is run out of that building. A lot of times people realize they don't need to be in the real estate business in their business, and they will sell their building and keep their business there, okay? A lot of franchisees like Dunkin' Donuts and people like, they don't own their property. An investor owns that property. So that investor is looking at what the cap rate is, and cap rate is capitalization rate. So if your particular client were staying in that building, their lease rate turns into a cap rate to tell you what you can get on that building. Okay, so that's why you need to know, are they staying in the building? Do they have somebody that's buying their business? And in your situation, the very first thing I would do is get a business broker involved. Because if they sell their business instead of just shutting their business down, then they're getting money on the business side. That new business comes in, signs a long-term lease, and you can get an investor for it. Did I answer all those questions? Did I create more? Did I go too deep?
We'll just need to do it again the next time.
Okay.
So kind of like when we qualify, I'm just trying to break this down since Jacqueline taught me what I knew enough to know I don't want to do it. And so just kind of like we pre-qualify residential clients.
Okay.
You know, okay, where is the property? What is the property currently being used for? What is your intentions with the property moving? You know, a very similar range is different questions.
Yeah. And pre-qualifying a property is going to be different than pre-qualifying the buyer or the lessee or something like that. And she's absolutely right. Y'all pre-qualify people all day long. That's what you do, right? I mean, anytime you got a buyer, you pre-qualify. Pre-qualifying with residential, I mean, with commercial is not as easy because those people don't really want to give you all their information. And you'll ask for it. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. But if they want to lease something, they have to give you that information because the landlord is going to be looking for 2 years of tax returns a lot of times, business plans, all kinds of stuff. If they're a national franchise, they're easy to qualify because they're on the S&P 500 or they're rated in D&B, Dun & Bradstreet. So depending on qualifying, the normal ones that we get, I wouldn't say normal. I mean, we do have some people we're working with that are massive nationals. And you don't worry about pre-qualifying them.
You're writing a check for it.
Yeah, they're writing a check
No
for it.
need
You
to
don't worry
care.
about pre-qualifying them. But as far as pre-qualifying a lessee, we're gonna use that as an example since you brought this one up. We've got someone that is looking to rent a small building, okay? This person, we have the listing, but the tenant came directly to us, so we're trying to help them as well. And this particular tenant, it's a brand new business as far as what they're getting ready to do. They've got 13 years of experience doing this in a business that's handled a different way. This is stationary, where right now they're not a stationary business. But that landlord needs to know that they're gonna sign on that dotted line and be able to pay. Number one, on leases, we get guarantees. And y'all, let me explain something to you. That is a personal guarantee. You don't pay, I come after your house. And you need to make sure that the tenant knows that. They need to understand what a guarantee is. Most of them, if they're already in business, they understand that. But when it comes to buying, and Brian is going to take this over, when it comes to buying a commercial building, there's a lot that you have to go through to get qualified, but the first thing to do is get a bank. So what did you do to buy this?
Just about having a relationship with the bank.
Yeah, that's not all.
And truthfully, I mean, you know, like you said, you gotta have 2 years of taxes and showing you're making money, and having a local banker and having a relationship makes a difference. We just have called them up, said, hey, this is what we want to do, and he said, okay, this is what you're gonna need, and that's pretty much it, to be honest with you.
No, he's making that he is making that way too, look at April's face. He is making that way too simple. Here's the thing. Their income has to qualify them to be able to make these payments plus. Okay,
And we were able to show, like, in the slum part, showing the income from that, permanent space for the whole building, to be honest with you. So
And
it's a
income.
business model, seeing that.
and
It's
the
just a
income
business
for
model.
I
this.
think the important thing that was a learning curve for me was having to go ahead and find out what everything was gonna cost. Like, we had to, it's kind of like pre-sale and new construction. You have to figure out what everything's gonna cost and build it in and then say, do I qualify for this?
Right.
Yeah.
And you do have to have, that's why I said we have a lot of contractors we call. We have a lot of I mean, I've got contractors, I've got all their cell phone numbers, and I'll go, hey, can I get in a building for $192 a foot? And they'll say, yeah, and give me the type of building I can get into for $192 a foot. And we're gonna go over a little bit of that if we have time. Where's a timer? Where's a clock?
You got 31 minutes.
Oh crap. Okay, yes, ma'am.
You said, if you don't pay the rent, say you're the person leasing, then, they can come back and collect on you. What if it's an LLC or they still can?
Personal guarantee.
That's a legal.
Personal guarantee.
Personal.
Okay.
That's right. That's a legality that people think, oh, my LLC is signing this guarantee. Well, if the landlord accepts the LLC signing it, sure. But most of the time they're looking for the personal guarantee, and that's different. So if it's a personal guarantee, they come back on you. If they accepted an LLC, the only reason they did was the LLC had a lot of property or a lot of money within that LLC.
That was one thing, we had to personally guarantee this.
Right.
It's just, you know, you don't want to have to do that, but obviously we had to, but if you got enough value in a couple of other different buildings, they won't ask for a personal guarantee to go to another building or nothing like that.
And that's called cross collateralizing. You can take one loan that's one building that you have a loan on, that you have equity in, and use it as collateral on the next one. So then they kind of each cross and collateralize the other. Did I answer all your questions, ma'am? Did I miss anything?
No, I'm just thinking about some other stuff I'd love for you guys to
We can give
say.
you a little star for all these questions you got.
Yeah, you get a
No,
start.
take it. So explain to them, because I know when I first started learning, it was like y'all were speaking another language when you say, okay, you're looking for a space, you want to spend this per square foot. Do you want a triple net or do you want a cold dark shell?
Very
Do you
good.
need a vanilla box? And I was like,
Yeah.
I want chocolate with sprinkles. I don't know.
And
What do I want?
Cream filled.
Yes.
Yes, and that I actually included in your handout. And the
Alright, can you
reason.
Email this to me so I can share it to
He,
everybody.
he can email it to you.
Okay, sure.
But first, let's go over this land sample real quick. The reason I put this, well, actually, let's go over both of these. Let's back up. Let's go over these. A 7 to 10 year real estate cycle. This is, of course, commercial real estate. And this is, y'all, we've been going through this again here recently. You've got low vacancies like we had. All of a sudden, the prices and the rents increased. How many people have heard about rents increases in multifamily and commercial? Actually, I mean, in residential and commercial. Then all of a sudden you get all this new construction, right? Well, then all of a sudden you got a little bit of oversupply, so your vacancies go up, so your price comes down, and then it goes again. And this is a true 7 to 10 year real estate cycle. We're moving through it. And the next one is a land, and I'm sorry.
Where are we at now?
Well, do I have to answer that question? To tell you the truth, I think right now, I think we're in accelerated new construction. And that's personally where I think we are. And I do think we're going to be a little bit of oversupply, but not necessarily in our region. I think Johnston County, unfortunately, is not gonna, well, I think the triangle is not gonna get in an oversupply situation. Now,
Is this commercial you're talking about?
yes, that's what I'm talking about. My biggest problem in Johnston County is we can't build as fast as we need to right now, so that's hurting us a little bit.
And can you talk about the oversupply does not mean everything. So we have an undersupply of warehouse.
Okay,
with
all right.
excess.
That's
So-
right. We do have right now in Johnston County, we're at like 96% occupancy. Y'all, that's unheard of. 90%, 96% means that there's only 4% to lease out. And think about the growth. Tell you a couple of quick things. The Toyota battery plant is going in Liberty, North Carolina, which is right down 64. And then you've got VinFast, which is the Korean electric car manufacturer, is going in near Sanford, and it's called Moncure.
$4 billion investment.
Yeah. Now, here's the thing. The Toyota plant and VinFast alone is 7,500 people. That's a lot of people, okay? That's going to be working there. That's a lot of people. Some towns don't. Yeah. See, that's right. So, two things that's going to happen to this area. Well, let me tell you one about Toyota. Toyota, in their contract with the state to get some of the incentives that they're getting, raised their hand and said, guess what? We don't want any ancillary businesses within a 40-mile or 40-minute range of us. I can't remember which was, I think it was 40 minutes. 40-minute range of us. Why would they do that? Yes, April.
So you're not stealing each other's workforce.
Workforce is one of my passions. I love workforce. I love learning about it and understanding everything. And I know that sounds weird, but it's so unique to some of these bigger companies. It's so unique to everybody. And they have to get real creative to retain the employees. And anyway, I like workforce. I think it's fun. So, but that's why Toyota did that. They don't want an ancillary business to steal their employee. I don't know if VinFast did that or not, but if they didn't, they should have. But what happens to our area is because if you take 40 minutes around where the Toyota plant is, you're past Pittsburgh, you're closer to you're already in the triangle. So if that's the case, where do all those ancillary businesses go? They come here, and we're seeing that much growth. So there's a lot to do with why people
maintain where they're going. So when you think about ancillary businesses coming to this area, that's one reason we are seeing so much growth. That growth is actually a lot in the industrial warehouse and distribution side or asset class of commercial. So we have more of that, less of that than we have anything else. We have more of that is just almost fully occupied. 96% is extremely high. That's one thing that we need here in Johnston County. We need more industrial, which is the manufacturing too, but we need more industrial than we actually need distribution. Distribution is like Amazon. And here's the problem. Boy, it's not being recorded, right?
Yeah, we're being recorded.
Recorded, great.
It's fine.
Okay,
It's
that
just
company
family.
that starts with an A.
Now you're gonna be wanted.
Now I'm gonna be wanted. That company that starts with an A, hey, it's great. You know, they're providing jobs. They've got $18 an hour as starting pay. That's great, but who can live on $18 an hour? No. I mean, so we need manufacturing and industrial that's not just distribution. We need the jobs that are paying $45,000 to $55,000 to $60,000 a year. And in order to do that, though, we have to have the availability of the buildings for those people to come into. Did I handle all of that for you? Okay, good. So let's keep going on our little handout. See this land sample? Somebody tell me how long it's been on the market.
1,219 days.
You see that? Yeah. That to me is like, oh my gosh. And people, y'all will, this is crazy. And the public can get crazy. So you'll have somebody really interested in something and they'll call and they'll go, oh, well, this is listed at $2 million, but it's been on the market for 1,219 days. Let's offer them 500,000 because they think it's not sold or selling because it's been on the market for so long. Because, you know, the first thing you have to say is, well, it could have sold and been relisted, correct? That even happens in MLS, doesn't it? All right, could have sold and been relisted, or they have had it, they started out with a larger parcel with the same address, developed some of that, and then this is being sold otherwise. I mean, the Bojangles and the Sheets could have been part of this total parcel at one time. Makes sense? That's why I put this one on here. Everybody will see that it's been on the market. Hey, and guys, guess what? It could possibly not even be available. That broker just wants you to call them.
He did update it 8 days ago. so-
Yeah, they did update 8 days ago. Now let's go to the lease sample. Now there's 2 pages on this lease sample. I'm really glad that you can do it side by side. The reason I brought this one up is because this talks about a triple net lease. Okay. It gives you, we're going to go over that in a minute. It gives you the rate per square foot, the term, the subtype. It's an office, 11,000 square feet. And then you go to the other side and it was built in 1980. O&I, office and light industrial. Every municipality, not every one, has different, but you need to make sure that you check the municipality codes for what their zoning is, because some could have O&I, some could have it as something else, but this is Wake County. Okay, so that's kind of what she was talking about earlier. Was this particular one is a triple net lease. The most things that we get from people is what type of lease is they need help with leases. A triple net lease, N, net. That means that the tenant pays everything, okay? Now, what I want to tell you is that there is no two anything alike in commercial real estate. None, no two alike.
There's no standard.
There's no, everything is negotiated. Everything is negotiated. But a triple net lease, if you hear it and you want some more information about that, the landlord normally is passing everything through to the tenant. These are normally used on single tenant buildings, not multi-tenant buildings, because it gets too confusing. Multi-tenant buildings are called TICAM when it comes to their expenses. But a triple net lease, the tenant pays the taxes, the insurance, and the maintenance. So they basically, they all but own the building, right? They all but own the building. A lot of franchisees, this is the way they want it. For instance, McDonald's. Who in here thinks McDonald's is a restaurant or a fast food company? Nope, they're not. McDonald's is actually a real estate company. They own all of their real estate. They make all their money on their real estate. We're not all of it. They make a gross amount of money on their real estate. Kind of interesting, isn't it?
Do you mean the buildings are on property they own?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
But you have families-
Franchisees, Fred and Doris, yeah, Fred and Doris are
They
real.
pay all that fees for the money to open McDonald's on the land that McDonald's already owns.
Doris and Fred Huebner are really good friends of mine and my husband's and Brian's too. And, you know, at one time they had, I don't know, excuse me, 17, 18, 19 locations. They don't own them. They pay lease to McDonald's. Okay, so
Still money.
there's still money to be made, obviously, or they wouldn't be doing all the franchises. I mean, they'd stop. But that's to give you an idea of the fact that franchisees do most of the time enter into a triple net lease because they already know that they've got it built in their budget. Here's the other thing about a lease. A lease rate or a lease amount and the things that you pay are 100% an expense. Well, guess what? Brian doesn't have that advantage owning this building. His interest is an expense on his taxes, but not his principal amount that he pays toward the loan. So there's an advantage to some of these people out there, like McDonald's, like Smithfield's Chicken and Barbecue. I read them for a while. You know, some of those, they don't want the franchisee that's running the business to own the restaurant building and have to worry with maintenance. You know, HVAC goes down. Oh my gosh, then they're concentrating on maintenance and restaurant stuff instead of the restaurant part of the business, instead of concentrating.
That cheeseburger.
Yeah. So there are reasons and there's benefits to both. Depends on who you're dealing with. Pros, flexibility, requires less capital, 100% tax deductible. Some of the cons, you don't get the equity and the appreciation. So you're not going to ownership, just like in residential. Limited availability, and the big one for people like Brian is control.
That's right.
That's right.
Like to control it.
That's right. He likes to control it. Y'all, Brian's the best real estate partner I've ever had. So one of the reasons I wanted to do this class was to inspire someone in here that wants to come up and switch over maybe to commercial.
Scared.
I've scared you?
It's just scary. I mean,
Oh,
making me
I'm
happy.
so
No.
sorry.
I do a
It's
lot of this- I
fun.
do a lot of this before, and it's just, whew,
It's fun.
yeah.
But, you know, I would like to be able to retire and make sure he's got a partner that's gonna work well with him.
If you're retiring, I'm done. Because if you're able to retire, I'm able.
That's not true. I'm older than you. Okay.
It's about the money.
Lease information. Let's talk about landlord and lessor. You will hear both of those. Landlord and lessor are the same people. Tenant and lessee, same people. A person, young lady, what's your name?
Kelsey.
Kelsey. Kelsey, you actually can be a tenant or a landlord. So can the real school, LLC. Because an entity can be a tenant or they can be a landlord. Because an entity can lease. We talked about earlier about the guarantee, remember? Well, the entity can be the guarantee if the landlord agrees to it, but the entity also can be responsible for the lease. So triple net lease, we went over that pretty much. TICAM is that next. Full service lease, sorry. Full service lease is basically, some people call it a gross lease, and a full service lease is everything. Y'all think about the big BB&T building downtown Raleigh. They have a doorman, you know what I mean? You see what I'm saying? I mean, they have a doorman. They have people that come in and clean. So janitorial, everything is included, one flat rate on a full service lease or gross lease. And then the landlord takes care of everything, but you pay a higher price, okay? Modified gross. A modified gross could be something just as simple as the landlord is paying for everything but the water. So you just need to make sure you read through the lease. And TICAM, acronyms. Why in real estate do we have to have 10,000 acronyms? But we do. I just learned what MOG was the other day. I don't even know why, but I'm like, what is
Difference
MOG?
between residential, commercial, right there.
Exactly, that's right. So TICAM, taxes, insurance, common area maintenance. It is exactly what it sounds like. In this park, there are 3 separate buildings, okay? The tenants in that second building will have a monthly TICAM amount. If that building is 6,000 square feet and there's 3 tenants, they each will have 2,000 square feet. And I'm using fake numbers here because I don't have a whiteboard to write on and do actual math. Oh, no, don't get a whiteboard. I don't have time. Oh, well.
You made it right, Timothy.
Will it be easier if I do it on a whiteboard?
Visuals are.
Okay, perfect. Right. Oh, great. Watch out your, yeah. Okay, I had no clue I was gonna be doing whiteboard work. This is great.
You said you needed a whiteboard.
Well, I know.
Timothy's not
There you go. Okay. Okay, so let's take a 6,000 square foot building. You've got 3 tenants at 2,000 square feet each. And so that's this, when you're talking about TICAM, and this is really and truly pretty much how it goes. Let's say that the monthly rate that's pardon?
$1.65 square foot.
Oh, you wanna do
Break it
that?
down.
You wanna break it down? Yeah, $1.65, give it to me.
$1.65 times 2,000 square feet. That is $3,300 a year.
Okay, so remember, we're gonna go over that real quick too. Let's go 3,300 and that's a year. Now give me expenses. Sorry, monthly. Please.
What is that?
Am I right?
275.
275. All right, so that's 275 a month. Am I writing too small? No. Everybody see that well enough? Okay, good. Next is give me $22 a foot.
44,000.
Okay, so we're gonna take 2,000 square feet and we're gonna times $22 per square foot. And y'all need a taller one. Let me write it and then I'll put it back down. How much was it again?
44,000.
44,000 in a month.
3,666. $3,666.
$3,366.
No, $3,666.
$666 a month. Okay. Everything in commercial real estate starts at a year. Kind of weird, but we all start at a year and then we break it down to the month. So that's a 6. Okay. So this tenant in unit 1, they are paying TICAM amount. This is a TICAM amount that's stated in the documentation. They're paying $1.65 a foot. Okay, so that's what that is. So TICAM, taxes, insurance, common area maintenance. Now, this is the tenant side. We can show you the landlord side as well, which kind of makes sense, helps make sense. But this is what you're adding together. You're adding this one with this one, and that's their monthly amount. Add those two together, Brian. 275, 36, 66. Pardon?
I can tell you guys have been working together for a while.
390, 39.41.
39.41 a month. And then we're gonna put another little thing in here called first year. Okay, so that tenant is leasing a 2,000 square foot unit out of a 6,000 square foot multi-tenant building. We're gonna be charging them $22 a foot at $1 and $1.65 for TICAM. What this ends up to be is $39.41 a month for that tenant for the first year. The second year, there's something called an escalation clause. So the escalation clause, let's just say 3%, give me 3%. 39.41 times 1.03.
So for those of us that have a residential
118,
brain in the
23.
room, this is like their taxes and insurance, they have to make sure are being calculated into their payment, that they're taking into consideration. The cool thing is,
Thank you.
yeah, so the cool thing is, if the landlord ends up if it ends up costing less, they have to give you a credit back at the end of the year. It's like the exact opposite of taxes and
Not-
insurance, because our taxes always go up and you have to pay the difference. This is flipped.
But you don't always have to pay it back.
Okay,
And you don't always, that is written in the lease.
gotcha.
If there's a reconciliation, because a lease will state if there's a reconciliation, but give me that 3% for the second year.
118.23.
Add it together, 39.41 times 1.03.
Yeah, I'll tell which one does which.
No, well, no, it's 118.43. If you look at it.
You're the one that told me I needed to write it.
118.23. That's what it is per month. I mean, the
Okay.
increase.
Okay,
For total of second year, it'd be $4,059.23.
Who's writing these leases?
We are.
4,000. How much,
the lawyer
how much was it again? 4,000 what?
39.41 plus 118.23. $4,059.
Oh, move this right.
$4,059.23. That's the second year.
Okay. Yes, we work together all the time, and I will not hear the end of it for hitting that TV. Okay, if y'all can read that, that's $4,000. So the second year, they're already going up. Where in residential, you know, your house payment normally stays the same unless you've got an arm and then it goes up, right? Okay, now the landlord side of this, just like April was talking about. Well, let's say with the landlord side of this, for the 6,000 square foot building, it's costing him get your calculator, $6,000 a month. $6,000, let's do $5,000 a month, $5,000 a month. So that's $60,000 a year, is that correct? Okay, so divide that $60,000 by 6,000 square feet. So it's $10. Oh, we overestimated that, didn't we? Because that's not gonna make it work out right.
Yeah.
Do 6,000 at $1,500 a month. How much is that?
9 million. Okay, big time.
Yes,
So that 4,000 at the end,
yes.
or even the 4,000 for your first year, that's not even including like utilities. and
Oh,
additional-
no, this is
That's
lease
just for
only.
the space.
That's just for the space.
Lights,
Just checking.
internet.
Just checking.
This is called a triple, this is TICAM, is taxes, insurance, common area maintenance. And it's associated with a, TICAM is a fee for taxes. It's actually the pro rata share of that building's expenses, which I'm doing on this side.
So, but isn't that included in that? The tenant is paying the TICAM amount included in the rent or no?
Yes,
The
yes,
TICAM is
50%.
included down here. Yes, the TICAM is included here. This is the first year's lease amount total. And this is the second year's lease amount total. And by the way, we only get paid on what they, we only get commission on this amount. We don't get any commission on this amount. We
I
don't
thought
get
you
any
just
commission.
said that didn't even count utilities.
I'm sorry, I was asking,
Utilities,
I'm
internet.
sorry, I was asking for additional
Okay.
utilities.
Yeah.
Sorry.
My bad, my bad.
That's all
Just
right.
making sure.
Sorry.
So 1,500 a month is how much a year?
18,000.
All right, 18,000 divided by the 6,000 square feet then, please.
3.
3. Okay, so, we don't have enough Tycam in here, do we?
I think that estimate's just too high.
That estimate's just too high. Okay, well, let's do something that's gonna match this a little better so that it's not confusing. Do, 155 times the 6,000 square feet.
9,300, it's 775 a month.
Thank you. All right, 775 a month are the actual expenses, and let's talk about what these expenses are. They're taxes, insurance, and maintenance, which would be the yard,
Lawn care.
lawn
lights in the
care,
parking
lights in the parking lot,
Parking lot swept and cleaned a couple times a year, things like that.
cleaning, yeah. So all of these things combined are gonna be $775 a month to the landlord. Okay, so this is the landlord side. So they're paying $775 a month, and they're collecting $275 a month from the tenant. The landlord can actually charge a administrative fee as well. So it's not free to have somebody do it for you, right? Even if it's your time, time is money. So the landlord can actually put an admin fee in here as well. Does that help clear up a little bit about a Tycam lease? I mean, a triple net, no, Tycam, a lease with a Tycam on it? Okay, when you think about it in the triple net, you don't even think about any of this, because if that 6,000 square foot building is costing $775 a month, that's all on the tenant if they've got a triple net lease. Does that make sense? Okay.
We're getting, we're 2 minutes away.
2 minutes?
So we'll maybe wrap up.
Any other
If you were
pressing
done, or maybe
questions?
we-
I have
questions.
Do you want me
I have
to
a big-
stop?
I have a big question. Obviously, an hour is not enough time to really deep dive
Sorry.
into introduction to commercial real estate.
Okay,
My very first week in real estate, I took commercial real estate 101 and I instantly had a panic attack. Never looked back at it.
that's why I
But
feel about residential.
For those of us who actually do have some interest, what is a good resource to learn more about commercial real estate? Because like, it's really, there's not a lot of information out there.
Come to these meetings on Thursday, we're gonna have.
Are we gonna add in commercial real estate to like our every 3-month rotation
We
or?
definitely can.
Yeah.
I don't wanna answer this, but I would say, don't try to learn all things commercial. Try to say, okay, if I'm gonna dabble, like when I did it, it was leases only. I did leases and land. But when it came to, okay, this land turned into a shopping center, I was like, no, I have no idea how to negotiate a shopping center. That is when it was out of my scope of practice. I know how to negotiate a lease and know how to negotiate land. Anything past that. So I would say figure out 2 things that are both interesting and try to learn more about those areas versus trying to learn all things commercial, because then it gets into so much more stuff.
My first commercial transaction was a apartment complex in Rocky Mount. And I had no idea what I was doing. And my broker in charge at the time was like, just call the real estate commission. They'll tell you what to do. I'm like, they'll tell me what not to do. I'm like, what is a rent roll? I'm like Googling, like people are asking me for rent rolls. And I'm like, I have no freaking clue.
Multifamily has these forms called T12s and T24s, and that's actually how you are gonna underwrite the value of a multifamily building. And they're fun.
I would say that some of the biggest things that we get though is people that do want multifamily, people that want commercial, and they want to start with residential and switch it over to
Yes,
commercial.
that was my question.
And that's one thing I was getting ready to say. A lot of people say, I want more multifamily. Well, y'all, that could be duplex,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So if it gets 4 or under, I would call it residential multifamily. If it's more than 4, I would call it commercial multifamily.
But what about that residential that is saying, I have a small business, I really want something that I can have my small business there and have the possibility of switching over to commercial, or like, what do we do with that?
They're looking for a lease. And if you,
No, she's saying
She's
like,
talking
we
about
have,
home.
people like Brian and I, we wanted to buy a property that he could run his business out
Okay.
of. And so our shop is zoned general business when he was running his shop out of, his company out of.
is that what you're talking about, taking a residential piece and rezoning it?
Mhm.
Right, like what, how do we look at zoning in its current state? And be able to say, yep, you can have your business here, and there is the possibility that later on you might be able to rezone it into a commercial space.
Oh, can I take this?
Yeah.
She's gonna have- she's gonna have to prove it her own.
I know, I was getting ready to, and I can feel her.
Yeah.
Because that's a big one. Go
Okay,
ahead.
so if they want to start running their business on the property, what they want to do is call county planning and zoning and ask for a special use permit. So Brad had a landscaping business. We could have ran it out of our garage with a special use permit. The best way to get something changed to general business is to have been running it as an approved special use permit and then go to them and say, now I want to do this full time. Can we change the zoning? Before I do that, I would call planning and zoning or email them and just say, how does this fit in your long-term land use plan? As far as, because the planning board wants to see things consistent. So for instance, your property on 42, we know at some point in time, that is probably gonna be commercial. 2 doors down, there's commercial. Across the street, it's already zoned commercial. You shouldn't have a problem getting a special use and getting that zoned commercial at the end of the day. Now, if I wanted to go just Highway 50 in the middle of 2 subdivisions and say, I would like to pop a building here, then they're gonna look and say, this isn't conforming with what we want this land to be used for. So at the end of the day, while they do have advice on that, and once you get down the road, the first thing I would do is start, even if I have a piece that may or may not be residential or commercial, I call planning and say, how do y'all feel about this piece? What is the plan in your long-term use plan for this? So like I said, with yours, I'm just using that one as a specific example, shouldn't have an issue because there's a triangle around it that's going to be commercial, and so we all know that's gonna be future.
How's the interest been on that house? Speaking
It's closed.
Yeah.
of-
It closed.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. Right across the-
And it was bought by somebody who does have a business.
What did you list it for?
Huh?
What did you list it for? How much?
375.
What'd you get for it?
350. 355. Okay.
So I'm not gonna take this too much further because we all have to go, but for instance, the property I have that y'all probably wondering, this brick ranch down here on Cleveland School Road, why it's priced so high to be what it is, it's zoned commercial. He already changed the zoning because guess what, everything, there was a building company there, then this has been zoned general business, and so you can see it coming, so he went ahead and flipped that to commercial, and right now it's an Airbnb. Which is why I can't sell it, because it can never be shown, because it stays full, just so you know. You have people looking for Airbnbs around here, I can't believe that thing stays full.
And we have a little building up at McGee's that was a house, and a doctor bought it, turned it into a little medical office. Everybody calls us thinking it's residential rental. So, but to change a zoning isn't difficult, but you have to start with the municipality. Or we're not always just on Johnson County. are
No,
Okay.
Just in
no,
general,
yeah,
period.
we?
if it was in Town of Clayton, you'd start with Town of Clayton, not
Right.
Johnson County Planning Board. So
You start with that
Municipality.
municipality and you call them and say, hey, this is where this property is. They'll look it up real quick. And they may say, I don't know if you've got a Chinaman's chance or not. I mean, they may tell you, depending on your relationship with them, but that's where you really and truly start.
So 4 Oaks, Johnson County.
Yes,
Start with Johnson County or 4 Oaks?
is it
Four
in the
Oaks.
city limits?
city limits
I don't
for
think
it.
City limits.
It's in the
Then
county.
Johnston County.
If it's in the city limits, you have to start with the town.
Yeah, that's
If
why we
it's
call it.
out, Then you go to the county.
Yeah, that's why we talk about municipality. It depends on where it's located, whether it's in a town or a county. If you will, do take this and just read through it because it does give you other information about building conditions that I think is very, very important when it comes to a lease. Because if a lessee is getting TI, which they're another acronym, tenant improvement or TIA, tenant improvement allowance, that's money that they will be given back after they spend it normally. But that depends on how the building is when they take it, and that's what these building conditions are.
And for those of you on Zoom, if you send me an email, Timothy@listing.nc requesting this packet, I have it, I will email it to you. All right, I guess we're done for the day.
Yes, ma'am.
I didn't catch your name.
Jacqueline, Jacqueline, or, no,
I call her Jen.
yeah, or Jay, they say Jay.
Thank y'all, but just so you know, they're in the office a lot and happy to answer any questions you have, but like I said, I would say I would not try to do commercial on my own without.
Never again.
We do, the big two things that we get are leases and investments. I mean, those really are the two, that's why I wanted to, because they really are the two biggest.
And
questions.
land, if you have a land opportunity, for instance, they have the one up at 40 and 42. I thought, oh, this is great for a grocery store. Well, they've turned it into multifamily shopping center and everything else you can have. So, I mean, they know more than, I can sell land for a subdivision, but past that, it was hairy.
The commercial side of it, just the only thing about commercial is that it takes you a lot longer to get paid.
Yeah, anywhere from, I think actually we just got a
I
contract
had
this week
5
in
years.
300 days. That is
I
like,
had 5 years.
Wow.
The Cleveland Draft House in Clayton, represented them buying that property, and it took us 5 years. Was it worth it?
Just one more question
No.
for you. How do you get paid for a real estate commission for commercial? Because you don't have the compensation agreement in MLS like we do.
Yeah.
And your buyer, the seller doesn't always pay, right?
Okay, that's really good. You want me, okay.
If you don't mind.
That's really good. A lot of times in commercial, just to give you an example, when we do a listing agreement with a big commercial piece, we've got a big commercial piece over in Garner, Fuquay area, and we're getting paid by the seller because we have the listing. The buyer is paying their agent, and this is not uncommon in commercial real estate.
it's kind of what you negotiated. We
It
told,
is
and we just told
everything.
him we're not paying any commissions. You get from
Every-
that side.
Remember, we don't
Yeah,
have
we do
anything in MLS that says you have to do this, no regulations like that that say you have to do this. We don't even have to tell them how much we're making. We don't have to disclose that. If they ask us, we have to, but if they don't ask us, we don't volunteer. So we've got one that we're putting under contract tomorrow.
300 days,
300, it's a 300 days.
it's like the quickest.
Yes,
ever.
quickest one ever that we've done. They've got 180 days for a initial examination period or inspection period. And that 180 days is costing them $2,500 because we call it a fee. At the end of that 180 days, they have to pay two things. One is a fee of $12,500 directly to the seller. To them, they put it in their pocket. The other $12,500 goes into escrow and sits there for that 90 days. At the end of that 90 days, they either close or they extend for 30 days. And that 30 days is also written in the contract. But the contract has all of this spelled out, including commission. The contract states in this one that the seller is paying 1.5% to the buyer's broker, and the buyer's broker is paying their broker 1%. So he's making 2.5% on this particular property. But it's spelled out in there, and it has to be, because our contract, our listing contract basically says, if we don't have someone else that we have to pay, your commission is reduced. And we do that all the time. I don't know if y'all ever do that in residential, but we do that all the time.
Our commissions are almost never discussed in they're not usually discussed in the offer.
Yeah.
That's our agency, they're completely different.
Well, but it's not really, because see, you do go over that before you list it, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So it's still on the listing.
Yes.
So it's still part of the agency and part of that agreement. In the offer is where it's not, because you use standard offers. Most of the time, our PSAs are written by attorneys, the
So
majority of the time. Pardon?
It's not as scripted as
Yes.
residential, it changes.
Correct.
Yeah.
There's nothing.
Everything is.
You negotiate.
One of the horror stories I heard early on was one of the teachers at my first brokerage. She did commercial real estate one time. She was representing a Walgreens in this area. I know you know who I'm talking about. And she did not do any compensation agreement, got to the closing table and did not make a penny on any of those Walgreens properties.
That's one of the first things we kind of
Mhm.
negotiate, get done.
The big
Stick
boys,
on that.
yeah, like the big boys, like I was talking about CBRE and all this. You know, when I first started in commercial real estate, which by the way was 21 years ago. But when I first started, you know, back then you didn't have a whole lot of females in it either, but I'd call one of them and I could tell something was off. Well, the very first thing that I started doing was saying, what's your commission split? Y'all, that's my first question.
And sometimes we'll get that before we get the offer, and we got to sign, we'll get the offer, the agreement. We just got one of them for a federal listing, maybe 2 weeks ago.
But that's my first question, because like you said, commercial is so different, and this girl worked her butt off, I'm sure, and didn't get paid. So that's my first thing. The guy that we're working with on this one that we're going under contract tomorrow, we know him. He's a fellow broker that we've worked with forever. I'm trying my best to get him to move to EXP, but he is just a good guy. And he said, Jacqueline, y'all don't have to do that. I trust you. I said, oh, yes, we do. Not only do we, but it needs to be in the contract, or your 1.5 is coming out of our pocket because of the way our listing is contracted with the seller.
Well,
All
thank
right.
you so much
Thank
for being a guest, and we'll have you guys come again. Appreciate it.
Thank you
Bye, everyone on
much.
Zoom.